We are now live. Hello out there, Facebook. I am Ernestine Lyons, and I'm the host of Quick to Politic. And we are kind of deviating a little bit from, mostly the local politics topics. But, as I say on the show, it's everything. It's small business, it's, politics, and it's everything that kind of touches on what makes our society tick. So, we're going to be talking a little bit about small business and investing and venture capital, Bitcoin. And this is going to be like the first of a series that kind of explore finance and, money and business. So we're just kind of going to be joined by my wonderful guest, David. Hello, David Smith. He's going to be talking with us on some of these questions. And so tell us a little bit about yourself, David, and welcome to Quick to Politics.
Oh, thank you so much. A little bit about me. I'm a tech nerd. I was a kid who was into programming and Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff. Thought it was super nerdy when I was a kid, and now that's the cool stuff. And it worked out okay because it turns out, those programming and spreadsheets, they are helpful in life.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And so you are into, okay, Bitcoin. So I think this is something that everywhere you look, there's some, social media influencer who's like, I can show you how to invest in Bitcoin, or, you should, expand your Forex portfolio. And, Bitcoin to me is a bit nebulous because in some ways it's like you have cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin being the most prevalent one. And it's the one that is, you hear about that and it's synonymous with cryptocurrencies. So tell us a little bit more about Bitcoin, Bitcoin derivatives, and, investing in cryptocurrencies.
I think Bitcoin is I think it's gonna be one of the great inventions of humankind, up there with like language, the invention of the wheel. And prior to Bitcoin, you have this system that people can be excluded from. I think there's about 7.5 billion people on the planet, and maybe about 700 million of them have banking services. And so there's a whole ton of people who are excluded from the banking system, and it's really hard for these people to, engage in commerce. Or, if I want to do business with somebody in Thailand, we have to go through banks, and there's opportunities for scams and fees and all these kind of things. And what Bitcoin does is it, just like the internet, where it levels the playing field and everybody's on the same, playing by the same rules. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire like Warren Buffett, or if you're somebody like us, where we're not billionaires. I don't think you are you?
Not yet.
Not yet, someday. So it's the same rules for everybody. And I just love that kind of stuff where people have the same rules. There aren't these power structures where you have to ask people to do things. And just like the internet, I mean, it's amazing now that you can go on and broadcast on Facebook and there could be 1 million people watching. Whereas, 60 years ago, that was impossible. You'd have to go and construct your own radio station or, beg somebody to put you on a show. But now you're in control. And Bitcoin is doing that same thing to the financial system and empowering people. And so that's what I got really excited about 9 years ago. First heard about Bitcoin 9 years ago. Unfortunately, did not invest. It was about $5 a coin. But I did invest in 2013. And I've just been a big fan ever since for 7 years. There's just amazing people in the space, and I think they're really building tools that are going to empower billions of people around the planet.
So you actually shed a lot of light on, something that to me, it's like, okay, well, how does it work? What do you actually go to the store and you use these currencies, or is it something, a little bit more close to, just trading, investing, and it's something that you have for, just future purposes, and, or is this the future of not having to use things like credit cards and having the option to protect yourself from fraud, or, having, just like when Target a couple of years back had that big giant hacking issue where they got into people's accounts, and, is this some sort of, just the future of how we interact with currency?
Yeah, I think it is the future, and I think today it's not very useful. It's like everybody today has a computer. I think I've got 4 or 5 computers here in my apartment, and that was unimaginable 40 years ago. And the computers were really hard for anybody to use. There were these, you type in commands and kind of do programming to make these things work. But people worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and brought it so everybody could use computers. And that same thing is happening in the cryptocurrency space. Every day, there's I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people, who knows, making cryptocurrencies a little bit easier, a little bit more useful every day. But today they're not particularly useful. There's so much knowledge that you have to use these things that, like that example I gave, if you want to do business with somebody overseas, you've got to worry about, security and technical details and all of that. And so I don't think we're there yet. I envision a future just like email. If you send an email today, you're using all kinds of internet protocols and simple mail transfer protocols, but people don't need to worry about that. And someday, cryptocurrencies will be like that too, where you just log into your bank account or who knows what, and you just say, send money to Thailand or Zimbabwe or whatever, and it just goes and maybe uses Bitcoin or Ethereum under the covers. You don't need to worry about how that works. But today, unfortunately, there are not fantastic use cases. I can't go to your Ernestine and say, oh my gosh, you've got to use it because it'll let you do this thing that you cannot do today. And we're also special here in the US, where we have the best financial system in the world. We have low inflation rates, we have pretty good access to banking, and so it's a lot different in some of these other countries where they might find it more useful more quickly. But today, I think it's primarily for people like me who want to speculate and say this thing is coming, and they want to get in early and benefit if this is the future, which every day it seems more and more that that's the way it's heading.
Thank you. Thanks for that insight. And I love that even behind you, you have like a Bitcoin portrait, along with a portrait of your son. And I'm loving that. And so, that's something that, just even having conversations with you. Oh my gosh. And it's,
these are the currencies dying. This is the euro dying and the yen dying and the dollar dying and
the pound.
Nice.
Pound sterling. Right. So and it actually, that's an interesting thing too, because, in some way, if you wanted to communicate with people from around the world, you would have to send letters, and, you use this email analogy, just kind of talking about how this is the future of, just that was the future of communicating. That was the future of instantaneous interactions. And then, even with your portrait there, you're looking at different currencies, and you have to worry about, well, this currency, the exchange is going to be different, and you're going to end up losing money. And, whenever when I was in China, I went there with, maybe $100 and I'm like, oh, I'm rich. Or in Thailand, where, the dollars to baht and that exchange, it was just like I could live like a king on like, $80. And, it's something that I think it'll also take that away, where you're working with the same currency across the board, and there's no need to worry about just exchanges and what value, who's going to have the strongest currency. So this actually it actually brings up another question about like the future of international trade. And do you think that this is going to be something that just completely, I don't know, because if one country has, for example, right now, the United States, the dollar is strong, and, in the past it was the pound. And, so it's just like you value a country's, GDP and, just its net worth based on that currency and how strong that monetary unit is. Will that change the way that, economies and countries value like who's in control, who is, because people were really afraid when China became, just like this economy that was super powerful. And I was living there at that time when they surpassed Japan. And so, just like, what do you think this will do to, just kind of world standing as far as, countries and, the international economy?
I think it'll level the playing field like the internet's done, and I think it'll give power to the people and take it away from governments and corporations. And I think there'll be pushback from that. I think that some governments will outlaw Bitcoin. Maybe the U.S. will outlaw Bitcoin because it will take away power from the governments and give it to individuals. And I'm a big fan of that. I like people having the power instead of these big organizations. I think they misuse the power often, and I don't like the idea of people having to ask for permission to do things. I like it when people can just just do it.
Right, right. And I think that's something that technology is also doing a lot of, just tech companies in general. They're going to be more socially conscious. They're going to be, more apt at innovating and just doing things. And now you see a lot of the rise of corporate social responsibility where big companies want to do good by people. And I know it's debatable when you talk about people like Jeff Bezos, who you love, and and Elon Musk, I know he's your favorite too. People are just like, wow, my gosh, these guys are evil. But it's just like, look at how much they actually are doing compared to, say, the captains of industry and the robber barons of, centuries before, like JP Morgan and, Andrew Carnegie. It took them into the end of their lives to actually do good. But you see people like, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs trying to do good, you know, in real time, because technology is actually making things better for people, and they're recognizing, where they can come in and fill a void that, governments are not necessarily even able to do. So yeah, I think that's it's something that it's definitely going to be a different world, for the generations to come. And in terms of, the ease of being able to do things and the way that corporations are now conscious on, how they want to step up and be there, to fill the void that, governments are not necessarily even willing to do.
I think a lot of people feel like corporations, control or pull strings, but I think this corporate responsibility, I don't think that's coming. I don't think Steve Jobs or anybody sat around in a boardroom and was like, hey, we're gonna do responsibility. I mean, there are definitely CEOs who have that, but I think on the whole, it was really the people, saying, hey, we're voting with our dollars, and if you're not responsible, we're not going to buy your product. And I think that's one of the amazing things about the free market is, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, if everybody in the US stopped buying Amazon tomorrow, he has to listen. He's like a slave to, the American people, to his customers, and he has no power without his customers. And so I really like that aspect of it. And he does well by doing well for his customers, I think.
That's true. That's true. And it's funny because I was a guest on a podcast, the We Outside podcast, and it was Hot Girl Sustainability was the name of that episode. And we talked about Ford in particular, how, every Ford commercial you see, they're focused on, like, we're saving the planet, we're doing good by the planet, we're are, lessening our carbon emissions, and, we're trying to do good things. And, this is, I feel like in some ways they're getting ahead of, consumer demand, but they're also recognizing it's like, no, people are going to want these car companies to do better. And, I think they're kind of capitalizing on that and wanting to, just do better by, having cars that are, just doing so much more for people. And, that's a pretty good thing. But shifting gears here, I know that you are interested in investing in companies, and you keep your eye out for, like, the ones that are going to be, you use this term, decacorn. So it's a company for a, and for some reason, the term unicorn has become a financial term as well. So you've got these companies that are so special, so unique, that they are going to be, the next big thing. They're the next Twitter, they're the next Yahoo, they're the next Google. And, so you talk about the decacorns, and they are, companies that are valued over 10 billion. And then there's startups that are soonicorns. So that means they're soon going to be this hot thing for angel investors and venture capitalists to jump on. So let's talk a little bit more about this and how companies that, I work a lot with small businesses with Build Institute, and I'm an entrepreneur myself. So how do companies and get to this, and where are all these terms coming from, and why are they, just why is this something that in the 21st century we're seeing more of?
Yeah, well, so I think why we have these terms is because otherwise this stuff is so boring. It's so boring to look at spreadsheets and numbers. But if you put cool names with it and unicorns, and people think unicorns and rainbows, that sounds happy and fun. So I think people like to spice it up. I've noticed in the financial space too, there's a lot of basketball and baseball analogies, probably from a bunch of nerds who have never played these things. But I think it makes it more fun. So maybe that's something with the terminology.
Okay. And so,
As to why that there are maybe more now, and I think my experience was a lot in the tech and the software world, and I think it's really amazing now where maybe 50 years ago, if you wanted to build a company and you wanted to build a car company or something, you had to get a factory and a whole big investment. And even in the 2000s, or maybe in the 1990s, if you wanted to build a software company, you needed to buy millions of dollars of servers or who knows what to stand up a Yahoo or a Google. But today, you can just get a laptop for a few $100s or $1,000 or something, and you and a couple buddies can build a company that can end up being worth $1 billion. I think WhatsApp, when it sold to Facebook, I think it was a billion, maybe 20 billion. I can't remember the exact number, but I think they were like 50 people. And I think Instagram too was similar. Maybe they were like 5 people when they sold to Facebook for $1 billion. And it's really amazing the scale that people can get to, using the internet and distribution, the power of code to build these massive companies in a relatively short time frame, 7 to 10 years, and go from $0 in valuation to a billion or $10 billion. I think in Uber's case, I think they started in 2009, maybe. It's like 11 years later, they're worth now 60 billion, probably something like that.
right. And it's just like a lot easier to be able to make, that jump from I have an idea and I also have a MacBook, so I'm gonna, sit here and design a logo myself. Whereas before, say if you were starting this company in 1991, you'd have to go and find some person who, pull out the yellow pages and it's like, okay, I need a logo, but then I also need to, get out there and market it, and I have to go find people to, and it's easier because you can do all these things yourself on Canva. You can do all of these things, just using, Photoshop, and, you can take classes to understand, what the marketing is going to need, what kind of marketing is going to be, something you have to push for, or, okay, no, I swear this dog, she only makes noise when she knows I'm occupied with something.
She wants me on
So,
the screen.
exactly. But it's really easy and it's accessible, and you can sit there and you can put your business plan together. You can, reach out to investors, and you don't have to be this person who, oh, well, I only have this that way, and, so therefore it's just accessibility. And I think that's technology has really made it easy. You can set up your own website. You can, coding is a lot easier now, and a lot more folks are learning programming, and they're learning design, and so it's just something that everybody has the capability to do. And then even with YouTube, if you don't know how to do it, then you're going to learn how to do it a lot faster, as opposed to like, oh, I should go get a business degree if I want to start a business. It's like, it's not necessary. You can go take a build class, and that way you'll just be more primed for just knowing exactly what you need to do.
Ernestine, yeah, I think you're onto something there too. Yeah, the accessibility of information. 1991. I don't know if you would have went to the library or something to figure out how to do a startup, but today there's podcasts and YouTube videos and all kinds of online classes and books and all kinds of things to help. Here's the steps. Here's how to do it.
Exactly. And so it's just kind of easier to get yourself to that point, and even meeting people. You have things like LinkedIn, and having opportunities to just like reach out to somebody and ask them like, hey, can I pick your brain? And I know that you are an investor, and I actually had somebody who worked with Quicken Loans and told me like, hey, I love your business idea, your business model. I would be willing to invest in your company. And I'm like, oh, I'm not there yet, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, well, you can reach out to people. And I think even when it comes to just like investing in small business period and starting a business, it's definitely that time. And so those are a lot of the questions that I had around. So what do you think the future of, just investing in small businesses will be, especially given that we had the pandemic and it kind of threw new barriers as far as, do you think the tech industry is going to be impacted the way that my favorite type of businesses are like mom and pops and, folks who maybe didn't necessarily have a web presence and, it was only, recommendations and foot traffic. And so now, like, how do you see that world maybe being the focus of a lot more investment, venture capital, and folks who want to nurture and pour into them? Because I think historically, you got these tech companies and people want to invest in them because they're going to have this huge turnaround, this huge profit, and they're going to be, something that folks are going to go for, as opposed to, the little restaurant down the street who really is going to pour all that much attention into that. And so do you think that maybe the humanity that we've learned in 2020 because of the pandemic is going to contribute to maybe us shifting our focus, from profit and I'm going to get rich from this company, but let's help out this company over here because I think they really need it.
I think that entrepreneurs are getting more power as time goes on. I think there's more and more capital in the world, and I think that gives more power to the entrepreneurs, like a supply and demand thing. If there's more capital available, then and the same number of companies competing for that capital, the more and more capital that's available, then the better terms and the more power that the entrepreneurs are in position for. And I think there's amazing things happening with companies like Stripe, where they're using data, to look at the small businesses and just say like, oh, hey, well, we know you're doing, 10,000 a month in revenue, so we feel comfortable extending credit to you, at some kind of favorable terms. Whereas before, that might have been a hard process for an entrepreneur to go to the bank and to, go through their processes and then get denied or, get a bad interest rate. But, I think that companies like Stripe, I think angel investing is a new field. I think it's been around since maybe 1970.
I
Venture
was just about
capital.
to ask, like, how new? Because this is something that, you hear about just, people like capitalists who just pour money into JP Morgan's ventures. And, those have been a certain type of people. But, venture capital, I think it's more normal people can invest in things.
There's some of that loosening up. Obama passed during Obama's administration. There was some crowdfunding regulations that were passed where yeah, people can invest in startups, and that's changing too. I think the SEC, I think in like 1930 something or other, they passed laws that said only rich people can invest in risky businesses, and so I think that put a damper on capital. But I think a lot of people are saying, well, why can I go to Vegas and lose all my money, lose my house, but I can't invest in my friend's business or the next Facebook or something like that. And I think the government's heard that, and I think they're working on changing that. So I think that'll bring more capital into the market. And some of the big companies like JP Morgan Chase and Fidelity, they've seen the success in the startup investing, and so they've been putting capital there. So there's really been a lot of I think I guess I'm not super familiar with the history, but it seems like from my vantage point that there's more and more capital coming into the system as people see good returns there, and I think that benefits the entrepreneurs. But I'll say something controversial. So you asked about I think in our lifetimes, I think people aren't going to work. I think computers with AI are going to be better at doing all the jobs that people do today and in the future. Just like it doesn't make sense now for a human to play chess. If they want to be competitive, it makes sense to have a computer do it or Go. And every year there's more and more things that it doesn't make sense for people to do anymore because computers are just better at it. And I think in our lifetimes that it'll just make sense for computers to do all the work and for people to not do any work. So that's my controversial thing out there.
Well, you know what, you are right, and I think that kind of makes the need for, just kind of having a diversification of the types of jobs, and like the job that this is why it's something like I was reading an article about how you don't want to ask little kids, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because the jobs that they may dream of now may not exist in the future, and we also have to be able to pivot on a dime to recognize that, this isn't going to be an industry anymore. And this may be replaced, and it can be mechanized, it can be outsourced, it can be something that, why are we doing it this way? And to be able to innovate, in a moment's notice. And I think that's something that technology is giving us. And do you think we're going to have like a dystopian future where it's going to be like 1984, and the machines were going to be our overlords, and um it'll just be something where, like, it's kind of scary because there's going to be a special set of folks who have the skill to be able to, just operate in this world, whereas, if we're not evolving and we're not keeping up with it, then everything that we do, because we, are not necessarily adapting to this evolution, we become stagnant and we become outmoded, and then we are left in the dust because we're not keeping up with the things that are changing so quickly.
I hope not. I'm almost an optimist, so I think technology will bring good to humanity. We'll see. It'll be interesting, how powerful an individual person can be and the destruction that they can, wreak. Like how we dropped an atomic bomb on, or two atomic bombs on Japan 60 years ago, and like that's amazing. That destructive
Almost
force
80
didn't
years
exist.
ago now.
What's that?
Almost 80 years ago now.
Yeah, yeah. And then, that destructive force didn't, oh yeah, my math is off. That destructive force didn't exist, 100 years ago, but now, one plane with one bomb, could do that kind of damage. And when we talk about, people getting even more powerful, all it just takes is, maybe
Drone
one.
strikes now. So, you don't even have to have a driver anymore.
But I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good for humanity, and I think it'll provide great things, energy abundance, food abundance. There's people in the world right now who don't have clean water. There's people who don't have access to food, and there's such a disparity. I think you've traveled around the world. Just being born in America, we have such a, I don't know, warped, different, higher sense of a standard of living than a lot of a few billion people on the planet. And I want to see that more equal, where it doesn't matter so much.
Right, right. And I think, it's more, I don't know, we're living in a very consumer conscious kind of world, where in the US we do have that standard of living where it's just like, oh, you need to have a disposable cup for everything. Whereas in developing nations, they're going to use the same jug over and over again. And it's, if anything, really they're living the same way that, generations of people have lived, which is actually better for, the environment, is better for your bottom line, is better for, the planet. And it's better for people around you. But I think it's really, to your point, that it's going to take wealthy industrialized nations to kind of, realize that, okay, we don't need to have all those things, all of those creature comforts. We can definitely get by without them. And maybe live a little bit more like people in the 1930s lived, where it's just simplicity. And I think that's something that, we're getting back to, and we want to aspire to try to, get back to, or at least, I don't know, maybe it's just me and my very eccentric world view, on just not necessarily wanting to have all of this capitalism, and the craziness that comes with it, where you just like spend, consume, planned obsolescence everywhere, buy a new one, upgrade, update. And so yeah, but that it's definitely an interesting conversation. But thank you so much for exploring these topics related to technology and investing and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So it's been really great talking with you, David. Thank you so much for coming on. Let the folks out there know where they can find you, and just hear more from you and all that fun jazz.
Well, thank you. I'm on Twitter at David Silva Smith.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, thank you out there, everybody, for tuning in, and have a great one. This has been Quick to Politic. And